Well, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. And today what we're going to visit about is the Total Credit Rebuild Program. I'm going to give you some background and help you understand its purpose and its evolution and how we're really excited to relaunch the newest version of TCR. So we're looking here at the screen, totalcreditrebuild.org. And as it states, we're going to help clients put together the pieces for a better future with an exceptional business and personal credit profile. So looking both at business and personal credit. The question asked, do you need a total credit rebuild? What we know is that often small business owners are unable to access the capital needed due to challenged personal credit scores and or inadequately developed business credit profiles. That first paragraph is implicitly suggesting that we need to identify what the goals of better credit are. When I was a professor, I taught a financial literacy class, and we taught about the utility of money and the utility of credit. Typically, people don't really want money or credit. They want what they can get from having money or having better credit. So is it to get the funds necessary to start a business? Is it to qualify for a home mortgage, etc.? So what we're going to do with the total credit rebuild going forward today and going forward is making sure that we understand what the client's goals are, because depending upon the end goal that they have or goals that they have is going to impact what we focus on. As you've heard us recently talk about, if our goal is to get business funding, while personal credit plays a role in that, we can get business loans with a much lower credit score in many cases than what it would take to get a personal loan. And so understanding what our end goal is important. So second paragraph here, the total credit rebuild assists small business owners in optimizing both their personal and business credit profiles with no upfront cost to pay to us. What we want to be careful about is clarifying that we're not charging anything for clients up front to go through the total credit rebuild, but that shouldn't be misconstrued to think that there's not expenses that are involved with credit building and or operating a business. So for example, it's not uncommon that clients that we work with don't have a strong enough credit profile. So ignore the worries about negative or derogatories, whether it be on personal credit or business credit. In many cases, what really needs to be done is the addition of new positive credit, what we'll call trade lines. And a trade line could come in a number of forms. It could be a credit card, a line of credit, a loan, so forth. But what happens is when you get an extension of credit under your SSN for individual or under your EIN as a business owner, we need to be able to have positive payment experience on it, and that creates new positive credit. Well, of course, the money to pay on that is coming out of the participant's pocket. So what I'm trying to do is be very transparent and explain that while the TCR program does not have an upfront enrollment fee, it should not be misinterpreted to think, oh, I can go through the entire total credit rebuild program and never having any expenses associated with building my credit profiles, whether it be personal or business. That's too good to be true. So then we talk about what is included in the total credit rebuild program. As we mentioned, no upfront cost in helping build personal and business credit profiles. And that's a huge savings. You know, there's many players in the market on the personal side that will charge upfront fees or monthly fees for assistance in building out personal credit profiles. And some of the leading business credit building programs are $1,000 to $5,000. So by having no upfront cost, it's a great value. Secondly, we're incorporating in financial literacy education because we don't want, if a client has had some mishaps or mistakes in the past, we don't want to relapse and to see them to go back into the challenge situation. And we just know that as a society, most of us have not been properly trained and educated on key financial literacy topics that can help us be more successful. As many people have their eye on, certainly we're going to provide guidance in removing derogatory information. But what I'd like you to think about for a second is there's two categories or two types of negative information that could be on your credit reports. Again, whether it be personal or business. The first of which is information that's not yours, information that's not accurate. And so maybe identity theft or just mistakes can happen in credit profiles where something that's negative on your profile isn't really yours. It's a mistake. And so that's one category, and that can be handled in a certain way versus the other category, whereas, life got difficult and I did have that late payment, or I did have those extra inquiries, or I did have that charge off. So keep in mind, there's two different categories of derogatory information, and the strategy to address each is different, should be different. And then, as I was just inferring, that we need to plan on adding new primary positive trade lines as well, because we'll never have our optimal borrowing capacity if we've not demonstrated our ability and willingness to service debt, to do what we say that we'll do in terms of borrowing. Next is a very important one that can be often misunderstood as well, is assistance with creating verifiable income. When again, comes back to the utility, what is it that we're trying to use the funds for? Could be business related, could be personal related, or I guess a combination of the two. But to no surprise, lenders' biggest concern is, are you going to pay them back? And so part of that comes from what your payment history has been, kind of those prior two bullets that we just talked about, but also is, do you have the ability to pay them back? Is there enough money coming in, either through your business, if applicable, through your household, or what's called global income, the combination of both? And so it's difficult to access much capital, debt-based capital, if we can't demonstrate that we have the ability to pay it back. Now, there are certainly legal and ethical and moral ways to create that verifiable income, and that's part of a very important part of what we do in the TCR program. And certainly for all of our clients that are small business owners, whether it be pre-launch startup or existing, our emphasis is on funding under the EIN. That doesn't mean that certain loans won't have personal guarantees, even though it's a business loan and such. But the bottom line is our focus, our specialty is developing access to capital that's under the EIN. And again, that's access to capital is typically the utility of why people want better credit, whether it be personal or business. They want to be able to access more capital, more money to do certain things. In terms of the qualifications, again, our TCR program has been around now for almost a year, and it's evolved. In the past, we've worked with 3 different vendors that provided a fair number of the back office services, and none of them met our expectations for what our clients should receive. All very good organizations, have nothing negative to say about any of them, but we've decided to internalize these processes to make sure that we can be accountable and firsthand assistance to the participants. So the qualifications have relaxed from when the TCR program first launched. Our first vendor that we worked with had very, very, very selective criteria and was only allowing in about 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 clients into the earlier version of TCR. Well, that left a whole lot of small businesses behind. Then our second vendor went out of business quickly or had business interrupted because of the pandemic and being based in New York. And then the third vendor that we had worked with out of Florida, great group, they decided to change the terms. And we're very much committed to the TCR program having no upfront cost to the client. So with that being said, here are the criteria today and going forward. Don't be confused if you had heard something different before, because it may have changed. All right, so when we're working with small businesses, which is really our specialty, they can be pre-launched. It can be even before they have filed their business formation documents, before they have an EIN, before they have a business bank account, what have you. Or they could be a startup, or they could be existing. There's no restrictions there. And as we mentioned, even if they don't have the EIN yet, we can help them accomplish that. There are no minimum personal credit scores to enroll. And again, while our focus is building business credit and accessing capital under the EIN, personal credit still does matter for some sources of capital. The key here is there's no minimum criteria, and it's okay to be even in an open bankruptcy. Now, the third bullet is important, and I think that's key for us to understand. If we don't have the ability to pay our current bills on time, we probably shouldn't be focused on building credit, whether it be personal and or business, because we're probably not going to be able to service that debt, right? What's the benefit of getting a business loan if we don't have the ability to pay it back? Or what's the benefit of getting a business credit card if we can't afford to make the minimum payments? So when it comes to credit, we need to be at a stable cash flow position before we try to go access debt-based capital. Now, for those of you that are small business owners that need capital but don't quite fit in that category, what we can do is go after an equity-based capital raise where it's less dependent upon current cash flow. And you can see Uber and Lyft and many well-known companies have had very successful equity capital raises, even though they're cash flowing negatively. But that's an aside. So the third requirement is we have to be able to pay our current bills. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's not unusual that when we're going to the TCR program that there are incidental expenses that are associated with building credit, such as when you open a trade line, being able to pay those bills on time. So that again is just reiterated here. We have to, if we're in a really destitute position where we have no income, it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to be able to build personal and or business credit worthiness. Really, the root issue needs to be addressed, cash flow, and then follow up, we can start building credit. And you can go to our career page and see that we have the opportunity where you can be an affiliate, earn income with not MLM, not network marketing, you don't have any expense. But if you need help with earned income, we can assist you with that. And then ultimately, we need you to be compliant through the process. If you have a client who may be interested in being considered, and they have to be accepted and offered opportunity to participate in the TCR program, which has no upfront cost, it's simply here at the bottom of the page. And it's very simple now, putting in their name, their email, referred by, their phone number. And then we go down through the check boxes because we want to understand a little bit more about them. So let's read that briefly. So is a goal to build business credit to access business funding? If so, we click it. If not, we deselect it. Are we wanting to add positive personal credit to strengthen our profile? Keyword here is inaccurate. Are we wanting to remove inaccurate negative information? Because again, there's a different process for removing inaccurate information. Now, a real moral dilemma comes from this one. What if you have a client that has true negative items, but doesn't want those negative items to be on their credit report anymore? They really were late that month, or they really did have that charge off or collection. They really did apply for a number of trade lines and have a bunch of inquiries. We're personally not going to be responsible for challenging accurate information, because you could argue that that's unethical to say that something's not yours if it is. But with that being said, there are other resources that can assist with that and challenge. And here's an analogy that may or may not be relevant to you, but I'll share it with you and you can tell me what you think. It was several years ago. I haven't had a ticket probably in close to 10 years, or maybe 8 years or so. But I had failed to get my vehicle inspected. So it was overdue by a month or so. And so the sticker on the windshield showed that it was overdue. I got pulled over and got a ticket. And the officer said, well, you need to go to court. And so I went to court. Again, it was a non-moving violation, just an expired registration. And so I said, well, what should I do? Because I didn't need an attorney or anything. It's just traffic court for a $55 ticket or whatever it was. And the judge said, well, you can plead not guilty. And then you go into the other room and you meet with the city prosecutor, and they work out a deal, usually a lower fee, and they waive it. And I was very uncomfortable with that. So, I'm being told to look the judge straight in the face and say, not guilty, even though I was clearly guilty. The registration was expired. There was no hiding that, but that's the way the court system worked. He wasn't mad or upset. That's just the way I was instructed to do. Say not guilty, then you go in and then you work out a different term. They reduce the ticket amount, and then it just all went away. And so that type of process works throughout the legal proceedings, from something as small as an expired registration all the way to criminal offenses. Right here all the time, people claiming not guilty, even though frankly they were. Well, I think there's some analogies in that. So you might have some derogatory information on your credit profile that really is yours, but the process is to kind of claim not guilty and use different laws, different consumer protection laws that challenges how that information is reported to be able to have it no longer reported. Because in essence, anything that's on your credit report must be accurate, complete, and verifiable. And if it doesn't meet all three of those measures, then it's actually illegal for whomever is reporting it to put it on your credit. And so there are processes to remove accurate information. And we typically will like to get an attorney involved with this point, because when you have an attorney drafting demand letters to the bureaus and or to whomever is reporting it and explaining that they're violating federal laws and they can cite those laws, it tends to get the best response. So there's a little bit of a different technique here. All right, and then another option may be that their goal is to reduce revolving utilization. As we all know, as we use more and more of our revolving credit, our credit cards, our utilization goes up, and that brings our score down. I mentioned to some of you, I have a Discover card, and I had a large purchase on the 3rd of last month. And that's also the reporting date for Discover, to, at least for me, for the 3 credit bureaus. So while I had essentially a $0 balance the day before, the big charge hit, and it put me at 100% utilization. I paid that amount off in full the following day, but the day that it reported to the bureaus, I was maxed out. It caused my score to go down 89 points because of what happened on that one day. Now, a month later, that's resolved. The point is, high revolving utilization alone can keep us from accessing capital. And so there's strategies for that, including bridge loans that can pay down the high revolving utilization in order to be able to show that you're less leveraged, score goes up, access capital, and then pay back the bridge loan. All right, next is a goal to increase verifiable income. As we talked about earlier, is the goal to get involved with more financial literacy education. And then lastly, are you interested in earning income? Because we just can't overlook the fact that earned income is frankly more important than borrowed income. So certainly it's unusual for a business to reach its potential off of just organic cash flow. That usually won't happen. So accessing other sources of capital, debt, or equity is very common. It's called leverage. And so if you have a positive return on investment, that makes all the sense in the world. But we have some clients that come to us, their business is pre-launch or early phase. It's not cash flowing. They don't have other sources of income. Frankly, what they need is more earned income to be able to even implement the TCR program. Because as I mentioned, you got to be able to pay your bills on time. So anyway, the end result is clients can check any or all of these that apply, and then they click the button and it'll come through to us. So with that being said, we're really excited to relaunch the Total Credit Rebuild program. It's very much needed. There's very few small businesses that have optimized their business credit. And due to today's current economic environment, there's more and more individuals that are suffering from challenged personal credit. So with no upfront costs, we're able to assist clients in going through this program. So I hope this overview was helpful. I encourage you to maybe consider becoming one of our distribution partners, one of our affiliates, and help spread the word and get paid, or if you're just looking for yourself to fill out this form. Thank you so much.